Come to Daddy. You let me know when we're rolling.
We are rolling right now.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I see somebody's got the action set pretty high on this. But she looks to be in good shape. You know, I guess they haven't really seen that much playing time, each one. But it's great. So, you don't mind if I do just a little adjustment? The bridge is not in the right place. There we go. It's going to be out of tune now, but... She is. She's, you know, it's the amazing thing about meeting up with old pieces that we've done and built. They sound different. They sound way different. And the voice of this guitar is different, and it's bigger and rounder and more mature than it was the last time I played it. I think the last time I played it must have been at the big blue guitar party at Scott's house, just before the guitars went to the Smithsonian. Scott had a big party, and as I recall, he had he had a slew of great guitar players there. Tal Farlow was still with us, Kenny Burrell, Martin Taylor. The list is long. But they all played various blue guitars at various times in the night in the jam room. Johnny Winter was there. I don't think he played one of the blue guitars, but it was just a wonderful party. So I met Scott years and years earlier. I met him at Willie Nelson's house on Maui. He called me up and he asked me, he said he'd seen one of my guitars somewhere and he was curious what I could bring down and show him. And I said, well, are you thinking flat top or should I bring arch tops? And he said, bring an assortment of things. So I think the year was 92 or 93. And I showed up at Willie's house in Sprecklesville, and Willie wasn't there. But I got to meet Scott, and he loved one guitar in particular, which was a small-bodied flat-top guitar. It's even smaller than a parlor. I would call it an alto guitar. I called it the Tiny GRIMES, after the legendary tenor guitarist, jazz tenor guitar player. Still getting this bridge set up right. And so he fell in love with this little guitar, and he wanted a picture of an inlay portrait of his daughter on the peghead. And he says, is there any way that you can do an engraving in pearl and abalone, etc., of my daughter's face for the peghead? And I had never done anything like that before, and so I said, sure, of course. And I just jumped in and I said, yeah, just send me a picture of her. So fast forward in a year's time or whatever, that guitar was done. And he insisted that I deliver it to his house in Toms River, New Jersey. And that was when I first heard the phrase blue guitar project. That's when he said, I'm putting together this blue guitar collection and I want you to be part of it. And he said, I have about 15 Luthiers. And he goes, I know there's really good archtop makers out there that I haven't heard of or whatever. Do you have any suggestions? And I said, well, who do you have? And he gave me the list, and there was, of course, the Benedettos and the Rebeckys, Romansers. He did not have Bill Collins. And I said, Bill Collings builds great arch tops. And he said, I thought he just made flat tops. And it was a factory, just made flat tops. And I said, no, he makes spectacular arch tops. So I told him about Bill Collings. I told him about Mark Lacey. I told him about Kim Walker. And I told him about Steve Anderson. So his go-to guy, called these 4 individuals, and they all signed on except for Steve Anderson. And his go-to guy called me later. He goes, I couldn't talk Steve Anderson into it. And I said, why is that? I called him and I told him about the project, and Steve says, I don't make blue guitars. So Steve is an excellent archtop guitar builder, and I've known him forever, since he was mainly making mandolins. So I called him. I said, Steve, what's up? I mean, this is a big thing. It's going to spend a year in the Smithsonian, and all these builders, all your pals are going to be building a guitar. And he said, but he wanted it to be blue. It's just not right on wood. Wood shouldn't be blue. So I couldn't talk him into it. And so years later, I think I don't know. My feeling is I know Steve's a good pal. At another guitar show, he goes, yeah, well, I should have, whatever. But I was honored that Scott asked my opinion, and I was able to expand the collection a little bit. So there ended up being 22 of us. And this was the 4th guitar. I think I made something else. Made a 16-inch archtop for him. So this was the 4th guitar that I made for Scott. And he let me come into his room, his main music room at his house. And I brought in a gauge. It's called a Hacklinger gauge. And it measures the thickness of wood without having to get calipers in. It's pretty accurate. And I spent 2 days at Scott's house measuring all these old archtops, Kuhns and Stromberg, the Angelicos, old Gibsons, and I just left there with a stack of notes. How it sounded, how high the arch was, etc., etc., etc.